you got to think that most bands you see that you think are making all this money, the biggest band, doesn't matter, take 70% of that money away off the jump.
An all-new episode of The Jeremy White Show.
Available wherever you stream.
Talking about that, I mean, like, how expensive is it for you guys to tour with all that production and everything? I mean, like, it must be insane.
So stupid. I remember getting the budget for Revolutions Live, and I remember our pretty much almost tripling in price. And not because like we had more trucks, and we did have more trucks, but I mean just per truck. Our trucking and busing, I mean, people don't talk about, and like I see articles on Blabbermouth and all this stuff, people talking about touring, and then people commenting like, "Oh, you fucking crybaby," and all this shit. Like, look, no, man, listen, you got to think that most bands you see that you think are making all this money, the biggest band, doesn't matter, take 70% of that money away off the jump. You've got managers, which are usually 10 to 20%. You've got booking agents, which are always usually 10%. You've got business managers. You've got to pay your crew. You've got to pay for 7 buses. You got to pay for 13 trucks. You have to pay for all this stuff. And that's not even before you bring your production in. That's just getting your production around. So it's become wildly expensive to tour. We still do it so much. But yeah, I mean, sometimes like bands, like these bands canceling all these European tours last year, I was like, I get it, man. You can't afford it. You can't and why go somewhere and just like lose, $350,000? There's just really like, you gotta, and dude, the amount of times we've gone on a tour and lost $350,000, I can't count on 2 hands. I mean, like it's happened so much. Now we're obviously in a different spot, but we did that again to build where we are.
Yeah.
We want fans to come to this thing. And now, we go out on tour and we don't necessarily lose money, but we're not, dude, any rock artist who comes on here, for the most part, is a traveling t-shirt salesman. That's where you make your money.
Yeah. It's on the merch. Yeah. And
100%.
And all the fans become moaning, like, "Oh, it's $350 to go see Shinedown. Oh, fuck that!" Like, and then like, "Oh, they're a bunch of greedy. They're greedy. There's this, there's that." Everyone's shitting online, but it's like, but they don't understand the cost associated with this show.
And honestly, like we try to keep our tickets super low. Like that's something that we really fight for. So for you got to sell a lot of tickets if you're going to keep a low ticket price. And luckily, knock on wood, we've done that. But yeah, man, it's a lot. And that's why, the people bitching about the shirt thing is like a $40 shirt, $45 shirt. I'm like, listen, man, the venue's taking 30% of this off the rip. Then it costs another $9, $8 to print the shirt. Then I got to pay a manager and I got to pay a businessman. Like everyone's making this money before all the bands are. Listen, I'm not complaining, man. We've been very blessed and we've done very, very well for ourselves. And no one's, none of us are wondering where to eat lunch tomorrow or if we're going to have the money to. But for people to be like, oh, all these bands are, they've got hundreds of $1,000,000. That's not the case anymore.
How much does it cost to make something like this?
I believe that's probably about like $7.
Yeah. And then you go to the show.
You got to print it. Here's the thing. It's $7 if you print 20,000 of them.
Yeah.
It's 20 if you print more than that.
It's a big investment right off the top, hoping you sell those and recoup it. And then you go to the show, sign them, sell them for $100. Boom, Bob's your uncle.
There you go. That's what. Yeah, dude. I always joke. We always joke that we've devalued our signatures so much at this point. When eBayers, there's like always eBayers outside. I mean, there are 2 outside the hotel today, in New York, and it's like, what? I'm like, you're not gonna get anything for this, man. I'll sign it. I used to not sign it.
Do you recognize them at this point? You're like, yeah, eBayer.
I mean, you kind of know. No person in their right mind is gonna know what hotel you're staying at and come there, and usually they always have like guards. They've got like 5 telly pick guards or strat pick guards, and you're like,
I don't even
you
play a
got
strat, but okay.
you got 5 tellies at home that you just really are dying to have my signature on, man. So I always rib them a little bit, and I'm always like, listen, like give, I don't care what percentage you give of this to St. Jude, but like give a percentage of what you make off this to St. Jude. And they always usually agree. I don't know if they've ever done it or not, but
hell no. No way those guys are
probably not.
I always crack up. I see videos of like
Probably.
and like WWE superstars like getting hounded for autographs in airports and stuff. And I'm like, man, it must get annoying.
Oh, it's super, dude. Airport's super annoying. Minneapolis is bad. Philly's bad. Tampa's bad.
Autograph.
Like where they come to a lot of those places. It's kind of wild.
So a couple of years ago, you guys played a show as a 3-piece, and you know, bass players' tracks were playing. And of course, that's become sort of like a controversial thing these days. You got Eddie Trunk always bitching and moaning about, you know, oh, bands playing the tracks, it's not rock and roll.
No, Eddie.
Yeah, I know. But I don't care. Like, I love it. I just had Dean Cashinova from Journey on the show last week, and I asked him about triggers. I'm like, you know, talk about triggers versus, you know, your live drum sound. He's like, I prefer triggers in stadiums because it gives consistency every night, and the fans get a perfect show. And I said, that's exactly the idea behind tracks. I mean, like, look, you guys got Greg Rule, Van Halen's guy on tour as your tape guy.
Eagles too.
Yeah. I mean, does somebody like that like bring like elevate it a little bit and say like, you know, bring his experience from those shows? Like, what does a guy like that bring to the tracks sphere for you?
I mean, honestly, it's funny, man. Like we've never been this band that's like uses like, I think because we talk about tracks, I think people think that we are like this band that like uses like all these tracks, and like that's not true. Like here's the thing, all these people who like bitch about it, and even Eddie Trunk, like I agree with certain things they say. If there's like a guitar solo going on and the guy's not soloing, like dude, that's bullshit. Like I agree with that. Like if there's somebody pretending to play the piano, I agree with that. If there's a guy up there just like and he's not singing, like I agree with that. We just use it to fill in. Like we don't want to hire another band member or 2 more band members. So like, yeah, man, I don't want to play xylophone in the 2 seconds that I'm not playing guitar. I don't want to like be holding the keyboard and hold the guitar at the same time. I do it on State of My Head. Dude, there's a song where Eric plays acoustic guitar, piano, bass, and bass with his feet while he's playing acoustic guitar. Dude, if we were going to use that many tracks as like somebody like that says, like, just put all that shit on track. Right. Why make him torture himself by having like bass? Like he's like Geddy Lee. He's got a piano. He's playing a full grand piano. Then he goes over and plays the acoustic, and he's playing bass with his feet at the same time. I'm like, dude, I would just put all that on tracks. Right. Like why would we not put all that track? So here's the thing. I think I always get quoted, dude, in every Blabbermouth article of being like, well, that's just the way it is now, and blah, blah, blah. Which I probably should have done a better job of voicing my opinion. I agree with the people who bitch about those things. Right. If you got a guy up there that's not singing at all and he's just miming, that's bullshit. I 1000% agree with that. But like, if you got like, dude, there are no bands that have like rhythm guitar tracks. We don't really run any guitars. We run like 40-piece orchestras for Second Chance and Crow and the Butterfly and Symptom of Being Human. But like, yeah, I think that there's ways to do it that are great, that you don't want to bring 3 other people on stage with you and mess up the dynamic of what your band is, you know? Right. And so I definitely think there's a way to do that. But yeah, I don't get mad at these old get off my lawn dudes who are like, oh, well, I don't think it's that way. I'm like, well, listen, man, like the funny thing about Trunk to me is like 2 of his favorite bands are Def Leppard and Kiss. And I'm like, you don't say shit about them doing it, man. Like, dude, Def Leppard invented tracks. You know what I mean? Like them and Queen, like I can't think of 2 other bands who did it first. Queen did it. You think Queen did the bridge to Bohemian Rhapsody live? No, they walked off stage. They weren't even on stage when it was happening. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, they walked off stage. you think when you hear "step inside, walk this way," you don't think there's a vocal track going? Shut the fuck up. Like,
Or,
come on, man. Like, just shut. Like, here, just let people do it. Like, here's the thing. Again, if you're paying money to go see a show, and it's like all on track, dude, I'm with you, man. Like, that's bullshit. Like, that's go see a play. You know what I mean? Like, but like, here's the thing. And I would invite Eddie Trunk to do this. Come to our show, grab a set of in-ears, put them in, and we'll mute the tracks that are rolling, and you won't be able to tell a fucking difference. Like, here's the thing. I agree that if bands can go on stage and not do it without it, that's a problem.
Right.
Dude, I can't tell you the amount of shows that our tracks have gone down, and no one knows. We know, but no one knows. Did we finish so many shows where like the system shut down? Like, all right, we'll just finish the show.
Yeah. But even that, I mean, with the level of the production you guys got going, Tim, I mean, you got like, show computers running, production and sync with lights and click.
Oh, 100%. Our click track. And look, there are also songs that we play that don't have a click track. But yeah, most of the time the thing that the computer's running is the lighting moving, and like a bunch of our pyro cues are on that too. Right. So it serves multiple purposes. And Greg Rule is just he's such a dude, man. He's such a great guy and has such a great energy. And again, like this guy did the Eagles. I didn't know the Eagles ran tracks. I thought that was just them singing like angels this whole time. Right. And I'm like, wait, they run tracks? He's like, yeah. He's like, I mean, they still do everything. They're up there. He said, this is a quote. He's like, it's like you guys, you're still up there playing everything. He's like, but there's a little help in there. And I'm like, all right, that's fair.
I mean, look, with the Van Halen tour he did, he pushed play for the keyboards, but it was all Ed.
It was all Ed. Ed's still doing everything. That's like saying like, yeah, dude, Van Halen ran tracks all the time. It's like being like, Ed can't do this. Bullshit. Ed can do anything better than any of you. So, yep. I mean, that guy was such a master, man, so ridiculous at what he did. There was, you couldn't beat him. It was such an innovator, man. Like it's like, it bums me out to talk about it. He was so good. And I'm so bummed that he's not here to still make music and watch his son, who's incredibly amazing, also make music, Well,
how big of an influence was he on your playing?
Not a lot of my playing, because I can't play that way, and I'm not stupid enough to think that I can.
You're not busting out Eruption in the middle of your solo?
No, I can't. That's not me, man. BB King taught me how to play more, but as far as songwriting goes, a huge influence. The guy was one of the best songwriters, underrated as a songwriter too, man. Like, yeah, like, and I'm a Sammy Van Halen guy. Like, that's just where I'm at. That's where the songs were. Like, yep. Like, listen, I love
the world. Come on.
Yeah, dude. Any of that stuff, man. Like, finish what you start. Like, dude, Right Now is one of the greatest songs ever written. And that's Ed, man. Do you think about that? Dude, here's the thing. You can sing those lyrics, which are amazing, all you want. But if you don't have that piano part, dude, I literally have chills all over my body right now talking about that piano part. If you don't have that piano part that Ed wrote, making you feel like you can run through a fucking brick wall, those words don't mean anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was the combination of Sammy and Ed that like did it. You know what I mean? And that's the thing is like, so as a guitar player, not a huge influence just because I'm not stupid enough to think I could ever play guitar like that. But as a songwriter, Eddie Van Halen, I mean, up there with anybody as far as rock songwriting to me.
Yeah.
Maybe as far as rock songwriting, number one, probably.
Easily. I mean, dude, just in Right Now, you hear that B flat note, just bam.
Dude, when the bass note comes in on that piano, you're like, I could jump over this fucking building right now. Like 100%. Yep. Dude, totally. He's not he's looked at as this guitar god, which he should be, because here's the thing about guitar players, man. There's many guitar players that can play faster than Eddie Van Halen now, but they didn't invent it.
Nope.
He invented it. And guess what? If you try to sound like Eddie Van Halen, fuck you. There's no way, dude. There's no way you can do it. He was just people throw around the word genius a lot, and they do it very misleadingly. Dude, Eddie Van Halen was a genius. a Albert Einstein of composition. Like
Yeah.
there's no other way to put it.
But even with what he did with gear, I mean, like you look at the time, I mean, nobody was doing
Making his own guitars and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. But I mean, like, you know, potting his own pickups and like, you know, being one of the first guys with a Floyd and like the wet, dry, wet setups and the Bradshaw rigs and, you know,
Dude, he was again, like, and you, again, if I go up right now and I did play through Eddie's rig and guess what I sounded like? Zach Myers playing on Eddie Van Halen's guitar rig. I did not sound like fucking Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Here's the difference between great guitar players and guitar players who can play guitar. Great guitar players. Eddie Van Halen could go right now to my rig, which sounds nothing like a Van Halen song or any sort of thing. And he's going to sound like Eddie Van Halen. Period. He ain't going to sound like me. He ain't going to sound like Eddie Van Halen through my guitar rig, which is what I sounded like through his guitar rig. But I'm not a great guitar player. I'm a good guitar player who knows how to write songs. And the biggest lesson I ever learned, which is from B.B. King, is like know when not to play. Mm. And that's what I do. I'm not trying to fill up all this space, man. Like I've got a great bass player. Like I got one of those solid drummers in rock music who gets so overlooked. The dude is literally John Bonham, man. Like he's so steady. And like, I got to use that and go, I know when to create space and when not to play. But yeah, that's the difference between great guitar players. Eddie was a great guitar player. He's maybe the greatest guitar player, but you know, it's just like that again, when you can, Eric Johnson's like that. I was playing through this amp one time. I've told the story a million times, but I was playing through this amp one time at the Dallas Guitar Show, 96 or 7. And it was this amp company called Kendrick, and they put a 10 and a 12 in an amp to see what it was like. And it did not sound good when I was playing it. Mm. And I left my jacket in there, and I walked around the guitar show a little bit more, and I went back in to get my jacket. And I hear this amp, and it sounds incredible. And I'm like, and then I go in and get my jacket. It's Eric Johnson playing in like guitar, cable, amp.
Yeah.
Not one pedal. And he sounds like Eric Johnson. It sounds like there's delays and overdrives. It's just great guitar players, man. Eddie was a great guitar. And I think the word great guitar player gets overused. I think there's dudes who can play guitar. I always tell people all the time, they go, you a golfer? I'm like, I play golf.
Yeah.
Not a golfer.
It's like a NASCAR driver. No, I just drive cars.
Yeah. Like, no, NASCAR drivers are NASCAR drivers. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the thing. It's like, anybody's like, well, I drive a car too. It's like, yeah, but you're not that. It takes a level to be that. And honestly, man, I don't know. To me, there's 20 great guitar players.
Yeah.
Great. Who take them out of their computer chair off YouTube with their little cool podcast lights.
Yep.
And put them on any amp in the world. And can you still do that? Absolutely. That's a great guitar player. And that's what Eddie Van Halen was. Yeah.
If you could take one of those guitar players, put them up as Smoke Meat Pete's on a blues night, see if they could solo over some local band.
Yeah. And bend a note. Don't just do this shit. Yeah. Bend and be like, you know, dude, BB King made me leave the stage one time by hitting one note. He held one note for 12 bars and I put my guitar down and I walked off the stage. I was like, okay.
Yep.
You can't beat that.
No.
And it was like a lesson because it was me and it was Kenny Wayne and we're doing this thing and like everyone gets to go. And then he looks at the drummer and the drummer stops and he just holds this one note and just wiggles it. And you're like,
vibrato he had, man.
Dude, the best vibrato of any guitar player ever. I'll fight anyone who thinks otherwise.
Yeah. Well, it's like Eddie Van Halen always said, you know, it's about whether you know how to make it talk. You could have any guitar in the world, but if you don't know how to make it talk.
100%. And he does. He's the best, man.
Yeah.
An all-new episode of The Jeremy White Show.
Available wherever you stream.